Welcome, one and all, back to the Viper's Nest. And I'm excited today, because I'm talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So, right off the cuff, I really liked this movie. I thought it was very good. I mean, do I think was as good as Road Warrior? No. Do I think it was as good as Fury Road? Not really. Do I think it was better than Thunderdome? Yeah. Yeah, it was. But that's also because, see, I'm a little bit biased because, the Interceptor, Mad Max's V8, is my favorite car of all time from anything, and a part of me judges a Mad Max movie on how much I get to see the Interceptor in the movie. And you know what? We saw the Interceptor in Furiosa more than we saw it in Thunderdome, so there you go. Now, even taking that out of the equation, I really, really liked this movie. It was just an all-around good, fun time for everybody, I think. Now, I am going to address a little bit of criticism that I have heard surrounding this movie. People are saying it flopped because it's a movie about a Furiosa girl bossing all over the wasteland. And to the people that are saying that, I have to ask you, did you actually watch the movie? I didn't see a whole hell of a lot of girl bossing in this movie, you know? And as to whether it actually flopped or not, like, I don't know, I haven't seen the stats for how its release went over in theaters, so, I don't know. I actually have no idea how the movie performed in theaters, but that's not the point. So, to the whole Furiosa girl bossing all over the wasteland thing, I really don't think that is true. I mean, Furiosa's a badass. I mean, she's the main character, and I feel like to get really anywhere in the Mad Max wasteland, being a badass is kind of a prerequisite to getting anywhere in that particular world. So, I'll give you a real quick rundown of the movie, because for as lengthy as that movie was, its plot was very simple. Basically, young Furiosa is living her best life in the Green Place, which is where she's trying to get to in Fury Road. She ends up going a little bit too far outside of bounds. She gets kidnapped by marauders from Dementis' gang. Her mom tries to come save her. It almost works. As they're escaping, Furiosa's mom tells Furiosa to run back to the Green Place and hide. Mom gets captured. Furiosa kind of does a dumb, hears her mom suffering, goes back, finds her mom getting strung up and tortured and executed by Dementis' thugs, gets captured herself, and then she's carted around in Dementis' gang for a while. And Dementis is, it's evil wasteland Thor. You can see him right there on the picture. So she's stuck with Dementis' gang. Dementis decides he's going to try to take over Immortan Joe's citadel. Shows up with his biker horde. It doesn't go very well. Dementis did not think this plan through. But then he takes the survivors, goes, captures Gastown, and forces an alliance with Immortan Joe. And part of that agreement is that Dementis gives Furiosa to Immortan Joe to one day be one of his wives, which is, it's a little ick, but Furiosa kind of escapes, disguises herself as a mute boy, falls in with, like, the workers and the war boys of Immortan Joe's gang, makes friends with a guy named Praetorian Jack, rises through the ranks, becomes Imperator, works with Immortan Joe, goes to war against Dementis, and then finally, after 15 years, finally tracks down and kills Dementis. And that's it. That's really about it for the plot. There's obviously a lot more that goes on, which I will get into. But that's the broad strokes you need to know about this movie. So does Furiosa girl boss all over this movie? No, I don't think so. A lot more goes wrong for Furiosa than it goes right. Like, her whole goal throughout this entire movie is to get home to the Green Place. She does not accomplish this goal. In fact, the only thing she really accomplishes in this movie that she actually set out to do was to kill Dementis. Every other plan she had kind of goes awry and gets her into a lot of trouble. So, like, question. Can you really call someone a girl boss if 90% of the badass stuff that she learns to do, she learned from a man? Like, maybe I have a different definition of girl boss than everybody else, but that doesn't really seem like girl boss behavior. So as she's kicking around, working with Immortan Joe's people, she hatches actually kind of a good plan to escape that unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you view it, goes wrong. She smuggles aboard the first war rig that Immortan Joe builds for the purposes of transporting stuff between the Citadel, the Bullet Farm, and Gastown, and then she essentially hides herself and a motorbike in the undercarriage of the war rig. When it gets attacked by some offshoots from Dementis' gang, the motorbike ends up getting destroyed, and she ends up being the last survivor next to Praetorian Jack on that particular outing of the war rig. And this is where she does do some badass shit. She helps Jack and Midget Guy fight off these raiders. And she doesn't do it in a very girl bossy way. I really don't like using that word. I don't like that word. I'll try not to use it anymore. But, like, I don't know. When you say badass girl boss to me, my mind immediately goes to someone like Captain Marvel, who's just overpowered as shit and fucking bodies everybody in her way. Furiosa doesn't do that. I mean, Furiosa is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who maybe weighs 100 pounds soaking wet. Now, this is one of the arguments I've been hearing. There's no way someone as small and as slight as Furiosa is in this movie could ever possibly win in a fight against, a bigger, stronger opponent. And yes, to a degree, that is true. Size and strength do, in fact, play a big part in combat. I know this rather well. I did competitive martial arts and fighting from my early teens to my early 20s. And, well, you can't see me right now, but you should know that I'm 6'1", and at my best fighting weight, I clocked in at about 180 pounds. So, I'm not the biggest guy in the ring, nor was I, the best fighter in the world. I do have, a couple of trophies and medals to my name that I'm quite proud of. But, like I said, I wasn't the biggest guy fighting, but I also definitely wasn't the smallest guy fighting. And I've come up against quite a few people who are much smaller and slimmer than me. I think the smallest person I ended up going toe-to-toe with was probably about Anya Taylor-Joy's height and weight, and, honestly, maybe a bit smaller. Point is, small people can kick ass. They absolutely can. Just being small is not an automatic lose in your win-lose column. Here's why. So, bigger guys generally tend to be trained to strike fast, hit hard, pull someone into the grapple where your superior size and strength will win you the day. A lot of training goes toward that particular thing. For the smaller folks, just as much training, if not more training, goes into preventing your opponent from doing that exact thing. Like the smaller people I fought, man, they were slippery, they were fast. Smaller people can easily outpace a bigger opponent, keep themselves out of the grapple, and whittle the bigger opponent down. If the smaller fighter knows what they're doing, yeah, they can absolutely win against a bigger fighter. That's not a thing. Now here's the thing. Was Furiosa doing things like bench pressing the war rig and going one-on-one against Rictus in a fist fight and winning? No, she was not. In fact, she was fucking fighting dirty, man. She was using anything and everything she could possibly get her hands on to kill her opponent and not get killed herself. She was using guns. Furiosa, very talented sharpshooter. She was using pistols. She was using knives. Blunt objects, literally anything she could get her hands on to kill her opponent, and boy did she do a lot of killing. But it was believable killing because she was fighting for her very life, and she was fighting dirty about it. It was... God, the action scenes in this movie were amazing. I loved them so much. Anyway, so after the fight on the war rig, Furiosa, in addition to Praetorian Jack, were the last surviving people. Furiosa kind of does a dumb and tries to hijack the war rig from Praetorian Jack. It doesn't work. He kicks her out of the war rig and starts to leave her behind. But then he comes back and is like, yo, so all of my crew's dead. I gotta start a new crew. You can hold your own in a fight. You're good at what you do. I want you on my team. I will teach you literally everything I know about road warring. And after quite a bit of thinking on the matter, Furiosa agrees, signs on with Praetorian Jack to do runs on the war rig. And also, real quick shout out to Praetorian Jack. I think he's probably my favorite character in this movie. I don't know what the character archetype is called. I want to say mercenary, but that's not quite right. Like, Praetorian Jack, he's in charge of the war rig. And his whole attitude of the thing is like, yes, I'm working for Immortan Joe and his guys. I'm working because I'm getting paid. And because I'm getting paid, shut up, get out of my way, let me do my fucking job. And he is very, very good at his job. He, I think, had the most successful runs on the war rig out of anybody else who'd ever tried to drive the Fury Road. Super fucking good at his job. He's just, in general, a great character. So, he teams up with Furiosa, teaches her literally everything he knows, and he does it while knowing full well that Furiosa was going to try and escape someday, and at that point, like, he'd bonded with her, they like each other, and he's like, alright, look, whenever you hatch this escape plan, just, like, let me know, I'll help you out, I'll even come with you, because, I mean, I don't particularly like working for Immortan Joe, he's kind of a fucked up dude. So, obviously, since Praetorian Jack is not in Fury Road, he does not come to a good end. He actually comes to a very bad end. Dementis, aka Wasteland Thor, ends up taking over the Bullet Farm, like, the day before Jack and Furiosa are, like, supposed to make a delivery there, and they ambush them and try to kill the war rig, and between Jack and Furiosa, they fucking wreck the Bullet Farm, and they almost escape, but unfortunately, Dementis catches up to them and executes Jack, which is also the incident where Furiosa loses her arm and has to get a replacement. Very sad to see Jack go, but, you know, like I said, he wasn't in Fury Road, so he kinda had to die. There was really no other fate in the cards for him. Oh, whew. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. So, right, anyway, so all of this, does it equate to girl boss behavior? No, not really, I don't think so. Like I said, Furiosa's plans fail a lot more often than they succeed. But she does make it out of her encounter with Dementis, minus the arm, and hikes back to, well, doesn't really hike, she takes a motorbike as far as she can, and then hikes back to the Citadel, and this is where we actually get the cameo of Max and the Interceptor, parked up on top of a cliff, just kind of watching Furiosa make this walk. It made me very happy to see the Interceptor and Max in this movie. Like, I was in the theater with my wife, and when I saw the Interceptor, I was like, ooh! And I was, like, pointing at the screen, getting super fucking excited. Yeah. So, yeah, so Furiosa makes it back to the Citadel, meets with Immortan Joe and Rictus and Scrotus. By the way, Scrotus is in this movie. The guy who Max chainsaws through the head at the beginning of the 2015 video game. Yeah, he's in this movie. So is Chumbucket, for that matter, now that I think about it. That's a hilarious scene that I'm about to get to in and of itself. So, Furiosa is, like, telling everybody, like, hey, Dementis took over, you know, the Bullet Farm. Everything is fucked there. He's probably coming here next. He's very likely going to try to draw out our forces and then come and take the Citadel. And a lot of people are like, no, that's bullshit. Why would he do that? That's fucking dumb. But thankfully, Immortan Joe actually listens to Furiosa and does his own fake out, where he makes it look like he's running off to Gastown, which Dementis did a little bit of illusory work to make it look like he was burning Gastown to the ground. So he fakes going off to Gastown, which then draws in Dementis and his forces towards the Citadel. They fight. They engage in what is known as the 40-day Wasteland War, where Dementis and Joe's forces are just tearing each other apart. And the entire time, Furiosa's recovering from her severed arm. She goes about building her new cybernetic prosthesis. And then she's like, all right, so the war is coming to a close at the end of the 40 days. We've beaten off Dementus's forces. It's time for me to go out and hunt down Dementus. And this is where we get the cameo from Chum Bucket, which is fucking great. So Chum Bucket and a couple of other Blackfingers like hobble over to Furiosa when she's like, hey, give me a vehicle. I need a vehicle. And they're like, well, we don't fucking have any. They were all sent out with Joe and the War Boys. Like, we got nothing to give you. But then Chum Bucket's like, I have a vehicle. And then he hobbles over to this car that's undercover, right? And he's doing a very dramatic reveal on it. And I'm like, oh shit. Is he about to like pull out the proto magnum opus? Fuck yeah. No, he does not pull out the proto magnum opus. He pulls out the biggest piece of shit I've probably ever seen in a Mad Max movie. Like, this car literally has a peg leg. It's only got 3 tires, and the 4th tire is just like a crappy metal strut that's meant to keep the car level as it's driving down the road. But Furiosa, she's got a mission, so she's like, all right, fuck it, I'll take it. So she drives it out to the front lines, finds Rictus and Scrotus arguing about whether or not they need to, like, pursue Dementus or hang back or whatever. And while they're arguing, Furiosa just straight up steals Rictus's car. Or not Rictus's car, it was Scrotus's car. Yeah, steals Scrotus's car and drives off into the wasteland in pursuit of Dementus. And after a little bit of hide and seek, she finally catches Dementus, tracks him down, and, well, depending on what you believe, may or may not kill him. And I'll get to that in a minute and why I like this franchise as a whole so incredibly much. So, she gets Dementus, does whatever to him, and then fast forward quite a few years, we get to the start of Fury Road, where she's sneaking out all of Immortan Joe's wives and running off to the Green Place, which, spoiler, doesn't exist anymore. So, again, use that fucking word. Is Furiosa a girl boss? No. And here's another argument why. So, again, girl boss implying, like, hyper-competent, overpowered, female protagonist or whatever. I would argue that Furiosa is neither overpowered nor hyper-competent. She actually fucks up a lot, and nor is she a paragon of morality. She does, supposedly, a very fucked up thing at the end of the movie. And that, I think, is one of the core things of Mad Max, the franchise as a whole, is that the wasteland can and will break a person. Like, Max gets broken halfway through the first movie after his family dies. Like, yeah, Mad Max gets broken. Dementus, one of the main characters in Furiosa, is a horribly broken man. Like, he does, like, both Dementus and Max do still have shades of good inside of them. Like, by the time of Road Warrior and on from there, Max is only very much out for himself. Very rarely does he go out of his way to help someone in need if there's not anything in it for Max himself. Like, the Road Warrior, the movie, is a perfect example of that. He only agrees to help the people at the oil refinery so he can get some more gas. The video game, also a good example. He only helps the people at the various survivor camps because they can give him, like, a new engine for the Magnum Opus, better armor for the Magnum Opus, more weapons for the Magnum Opus. There's always something in it for Max. He almost never goes out of his way to help somebody purely out of the goodness of his heart. Dementus also has shades of good inside of him. Like, when he captures young Furiosa at the beginning of the movie, who is very much an underage child, like, he's like, okay, nobody's gonna hurt this kid. Nobody's gonna touch this kid. He even sets 2 of his, like, more trusted guards to be with Furiosa at all times to make sure that none of his underlings force themselves on this young woman. Which, I mean, Dementus is a horrible, tyrannical, like, barbarian warlord who can and will do some fucked up things for his own benefit. But god damn it, he's not a monster, and he will not allow his men to force themselves upon a little girl. That is out of the fucking question. Like, even Immortan Joe, if you read the comics, had shades of good in him before he did the really fucked up stuff that he does in Furiosa and Fury Road. Like, once upon a time, Immortan Joe was just a military commander named, I think it was Joe Mort, something like that. And he was actually a good leader, like, did his absolute best, like, take care of the soldiers and people under his command. And later we find out that, well, I guess going back to Dementus for a second, we find out Dementus, once upon a time, had a family that he was very happy with and loved very much. And then they were cruelly taken from him, and he devolves into evil wasteland Thor that we see in the movie. So the point being that the wasteland can and will break a person. It will bring out the evil in them. And Furiosa herself, try as she does to be as good as she possibly can, falls to that a little bit at the very end of Furiosa. So one of the things that legends say she may or may not have done to Dementus after she caught up with him finally. One story says she just shot him in the head and left him there. One story says she dragged him behind her car the same way he did to Praetorian Jack. Praetorian Jack dies by getting dragged all over the desert floor behind a motorcycle and then eaten by Dementus's dogs. Kind of fucked up death there. But the one that is apparently true, that only Furiosa herself and this kind of narrator / expositor that is in the movie, the history man, know about, is that she captured Dementus, brought him back to the Citadel, and at a very, like, secluded corner of the Citadel that nobody knows about, she chained down Dementus and planted this peach tree seed that she's been carrying around for the last 15 years in hopes of getting home. She plants it in his fucking body, kind of around his his nether regions, and then years upon years go by as this tree essentially grows out of Dementus's loins, shall we say, and she just kind of left him there, like, constantly in pain. He couldn't move, like, his very muscly Thor body wasted away. Like, he was in such a state that Dementus can't even fucking kill himself at this point. He is just stuck there, being, like, the freaking ground that this tree is growing out of, and that has to be somewhere in probably, like, the top 3 most fucking heinous things anyone has ever done to another person in a Mad Max movie. And not saying that Dementus didn't deserve it, he absolutely did, but god damn, Furiosa, like, I don't think you needed to take that far, but that is what the wasteland does to a person. It brings out the worst in people, even if they are actively trying, like Furiosa was, to be, you know, the best person she could be. She still stooped to that level to do this awful, horrific thing to another human being, who, again, absolutely deserved it. Not saying he didn't, but generally, I think heroes are supposed to rise above such things, are they not? Yeah. Anyway, like I said, just to close it out, I really fucking loved this movie. Like, the acting was great, the set pieces were great. There's a little bit of questionable CGI in it, but does not detract from the experience at all, I don't think. All the cars that were used were cool. All the weapons that were used were fucking awesome. Special shout out to Dementus's LeMat revolver, which, if you don't know, a LeMat revolver is an old-timey percussion cap revolver, capacity of 9 rounds, but also has an underbarrel single-shot shotgun attachment that actually does get used in the movie, which is pretty fucking cool. It's a great revolver. I was super happy to see it. And also Furiosa's Apache revolver, which is a combination of revolver, knuckle duster, and knife. It's almost like some kind of weird-ass Bloodborne trick weapon. Really fucking cool to see those two very I guess, niche revolver designs represented in a movie. How the fuck they managed to get their hands on those? Not entirely sure, but I was glad that they have them. The car Furiosa rides at the end of Furiosa, Rotus's personal wasteland mobile, very fucking cool. Dementis's weird ass triple motorcycle chariot thing. How do I describe this thing? Okay, so it's like a chariot, like an old school Roman chariot, but instead of horses, he has motorcycles, and he is somehow controlling these motorcycles using essentially like horse reins attached to the handlebars of the motorcycles. I have no fucking clue how he made that thing work, but it was really, really cool. The dialogue, also really good. This movie has given me something that I will quote to my kids until the end of time, that they will probably never understand until they're much older. But, basically when Furiosa captures fucking Jack or not Furiosa, Dementis captures Jack and Furiosa, he's like talking, he's like, "Oh, you guys, you break my heart. You make me the Dark Dementis." I'm saying that to my kids from now on whenever they upset me. I will let them know that they are making me the Dark Dementis. All in all, just a really good movie. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. I highly recommend you see it. Just so incredibly good. Well, I think that's all I had to talk about as far as this movie goes. Thank you for listening this far. A like and a subscribe and a comment would be appreciated. Oh, one last thing. About a year back, I did a video on whether I thought Mad Max himself could survive in the Warhammer 40k universe. I will put a link to that in the description of this video. I'd appreciate it if you went and checked it out. Well, that is about it. We'll see you on the next episode. And as always, have yourself a wonderful day.